So over the next 2 episodes, I'm going to unpack 10 of the most common mistakes that hurt retention. And more importantly, we'll talk about how to go about fixing them. Retention isn't just good business. It's about good outcomes for our patients. If chiropractic is truly going to change somebody's life, it needs to become part of how they live, not just something they do when they're in pain. Long-term retention depends on patients understanding a new set of principles, that how they feel is not always a reflection of how they're functioning. So let's be honest. Patients forget where they started, and if all they're tracking is how their pain feels this week, then they're going to miss their progress entirely. Progress reviews help us to show the invisible wins going on inside of chiropractic. And as Stephen Covey once said, accountability breeds responsibility. When people know that their progress will be checked, they stay more engaged and more responsible. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, folks. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Marketing Your Practice podcast, the podcast where I have the pleasure of simplifying the marketing and the mindset so you, the chiropractor, can increase your income, your impact, and your enjoyment in practice too. Let me start with a quick question. What's the point of a brilliant marketing strategy if patients don't end up staying? Retention isn't just good business, it's about good outcomes for our patients. If chiropractic is truly going to change somebody's life, it needs to become part of how they live, not just something they do when they're in pain. But here's the rub, even great chiropractors unintentionally lose patients during care, and it's not because the results aren't there, but it's because of small mistakes that create uncertainty, reduce trust, or fail to paint the full picture of what's possible with lifetime chiropractic care. So over the next 2 episodes, I'm going to unpack 10 of the most common mistakes that hurt retention. And more importantly, we'll talk about how to go about fixing them. And in part 1 today, we'll look at the first 5 and how the size of your recommendations might be working against you, why education needs to go beyond the report of findings. We'll talk about future pacing and how that shapes patient commitment. We'll talk about the role of progress for exams in maintaining momentum, and then we'll finish off with why you need objective measures that reinforce the value of care beyond just symptoms. Now, whether you've been in practice for 2 years or 20, chances are you'll recognize at least one of these in your current flow. And maybe a few small shifts might well make a massive difference in your practice. So here's retention mistake number 1 that's costing you, and that is giving recommendations that only address the patient's symptoms. Now, this usually sounds like this. Maybe it's right at this end. Let's just look at the next 3 visits and see how you go. Or maybe you're saying something like this: we'll work on getting you out of pain first, and then we'll talk about what the rest looks like later. Now, I get it. Some chiropractors, many of you, are hesitant to give bigger recommendations because you don't want to seem pushy. But here's the problem. When we only speak to the symptoms, we shrink the scope of what chiropractic can offer. We unintentionally teach the patients that chiropractic is really just about a short-term fix, and there is a better way. I remember working with a client, we'll call her Sarah. She had reoccurring migraine headaches, and when she came in, all she wanted was to get rid of the pain. And if I'd only spoken to her about her symptoms, she would have missed the opportunity to help her understand the bigger picture, okay? But instead I said something like this: our first priority is to help your body feel better. Now, that usually takes around 6 to 8 weeks. But for many people, the underlying issues that led to this take much longer to correct, and that can be as much as 12 months or more. I'm going to walk you through every step of the way, and we'll keep reassessing as we go. Now, what I did here was I planted the seed. I didn't ignore her pain, but I acknowledged it. I also opened the door for a future beyond just symptom relief, okay? Now, there's also an enormous amount of research to support this as well. A study published in Spine Journal found that patients who receive clear, long-term recommendations from their provider were significantly more likely to complete care and report higher satisfaction. Again, so if we want our patients to be getting through care and we want them to be more satisfied, we've got to tell them the whole picture, okay? Not just talk about their symptoms, and again, not ignoring their symptoms. We've got to paint the whole picture, because the expectations, when we set them from the start and from the beginning, we give the patients a better chance of them following through. Now, here's the key. Don't just spring long-term care onto your patients once they feel better. That's when they start to feel like this is a never-ending journey that they didn't sign up for, okay? When you wait too long to talk about wellness or maintenance care or lifestyle care as well, it feels like a bait and switch. Instead, in your report of findings, walk a balanced path. Acknowledge and address the immediate symptoms, okay? Then gently introduce the idea of correction and optimization. Let them know that this will take time as well. And let them know that they're in control, but you have a plan for more than just survival and that you're guiding them towards thriving as well. So the fix here isn't making massive recommendations out of nowhere. It's making honest recommendations that reflect the full journey while still meeting the patient where they're at as well. All right, so here's the second mistake that's hurting your retention. You're not educating your patients enough, and it's definitely not for long enough as well. Now, most people have been conditioned in the world around them to believe that if they don't have any symptoms, then they're healthy, okay? It's everywhere. It's on television. It's on pharmaceutical ads. It's in traditional medical messaging and across the internet. The message is clear. No symptoms equals no problems. So when someone enters our practice, they're often operating under that exact framework. And if we don't challenge that narrative early and repeatedly, then when the pain goes, they're going to go also. Long-term retention depends on patients understanding a new set of principles, okay? That how they feel is not always a reflection of how they're functioning. But here's the catch. Education is something that's going to take time. It's not a one and done handout as well. It's a journey, and often people go through several short bursts of chiropractic care before it finally clicks for them. Our goal, though, is to shorten the learning curve. And the chiropractors that do this don't rely on chance. They have a formalized system of education that shows up in table talk during the adjustment, in welcome email series, in social media content, in patient events and workshops. The questions I always ask myself to guide my education is, what do my best patients know and believe that my drop-offs don't? And once you answer this question here, you can begin to design an education journey that helps every patient move from symptom-focused thinking into a wellness mindset. And remember, this isn't about preaching. Telling is often one of the worst ways to inspire behavior change. We need to show, we need to inspire, and we need to ask. Be Socratic. Help patients arrive at insights on their own, okay? Use metaphors, share stories, and reflect their goals back to them. Because when patients truly understand what you're doing and why it matters, retention becomes a byproduct, not a battle. All right, let's move on to mistake number 3 that's crashing your retention, and that is you're not future pacing. And this one is all about the language that we use to shape expectation. Future pacing is a communication technique where you'll help the patient mentally step into a future version of themselves, one where the care is ongoing, results are improving, and their commitment is continuing. It's subtle, but it's incredibly powerful. And here's how I might use it in practice. Let's say it's week 3 of somebody's adjustment and the patient comes in on the Monday and I'm asking them what's new or different since we saw you last week. And they might reply with, you know what? I just had my first weekend in months without a migraine. Now, of course, the first thing we want to do is celebrate them. That's fantastic and well done. But then we want to add something in. I'm really excited to see how things are feeling 3 or 4 months from now when your system's had even more time to stabilize and strengthen. That one sentence there does a lot of heavy lifting for us. It congratulates them on their progress. It validates the win. But more importantly, it presupposes that we're still going to be working together in 3 or 4 months, okay? That's future pacing in action. It's not manipulation, it's leadership. It's about painting a picture of what's possible if they stay on the journey. In fact, behavioral science backs this up as well. Research into motivational interviewing or behavioral change shows that future-orientated language increases follow-through. When people can visualize success in advance, they're much more likely to stay consistent. And here's the best part. It's really easy to implement, and you don't need a new system. You just need to shift your language. Instead of saying, let's see how things go this week, try instead, we're already seeing change. I'm looking forward to where things will be in 2 or 3 months' time. Instead of saying you're doing great, try this. You're doing really great, and this is just the beginning. Every small phrase becomes a breadcrumb that leads patients towards longer and more transformation in their care journey as well. So if you're not future pacing, then it's time to start now. It's one of the easiest and simplest ways to increase retention without the need to sell. Okay, let's move on to mistake number 4. The fourth retention killing mistake is not doing regular progress reviews, and it's one of the most common mistakes in practice. What tends to happen in many practices is this: we front load everything. The new patient visit is long. The report of findings is packed with detail. We give patients loads of education and we talk about what to expect over time. And then we never sit down with them again to remeasure or reflect. And that's a problem. Progress reviews are critical because they give a formal opportunity to reconnect the patient to the original reason that they came in. It highlights objective changes like posture or scan or range of motion. It asks about subjective improvements like lifestyle, energy, sleep, and function. It re-anchors the patient to long-term goals there too, and it spots where education might be slipping. It's also a powerful moment for the patient to feel seen, heard, and valued. So let's be honest, patients forget where they started, and if all they're tracking is how their pain feels this week, then they're going to miss their progress entirely. Progress reviews help us to show the invisible wins going on inside of chiropractic. And as Stephen Covey once said, accountability breeds responsibility. When people know that their progress will be checked, they stay more engaged and more responsible, okay? So what's the ideal cadence? In the first 12 months of care, I recommend a progress exam at least every 12 visits. And after that, I aim for a minimum of at least twice a year. Now, don't overcomplicate it. A progress review doesn't have to be fancy, but it should be very deliberate. You sit down, you review where they started, you show what's changed, and you talk about what's next. It's a reset button. It's a moment of celebration, and it's an opportunity to keep the vision alive. And what's most important is it's one of the best ways to boost retention without needing to add anything new to your marketing or sales process. So if you're not doing regular progress exams, then it's time to start. You'll be amazed at what shifts when your patients can see how far they've come. All right, let's transition into our final mistake number 5 for today. And retention crushing mistake number 5 is not having objective ways to measure progress beyond just your patient's symptoms. If we're teaching patients that how you feel isn't always about how you're functioning, then we need to back that up with clear, measurable ways to track how the body is actually doing. Otherwise, we create a mismatch between our message and our method, okay? If the only question we ever ask is, how is your pain this week? Then we're reinforcing the idea that chiropractic is about symptoms. And even if we say it's about functions, our systems are going to show otherwise. That's where objective measures come in. And these are the tools that show us, not just tell us as well. Now, some of the tools that I've used and found incredibly helpful is something just as simple as posture, okay? It's great for visualizing changes in spinal alignment and overall function. X-rays, when appropriate, can show structural changes over time. I really love the subluxation station. It was one of my personal favorite. It includes the EMG scans to assess muscular balance and tension, thermal scans to assess autonomic function, and heart rate variability to see how stress is settling into the system. These tools changed the conversations that I was having with my practice members during the progress exams. Instead of saying, I'm glad your headaches are gone, I can say, yes, your headaches are gone. And look at how much more balanced your nervous system is now. Now we can see we're making a deep difference here. This was powerful because patients could see it, okay? They could track their progress and they could start to connect the dots between their nervous system, their lifestyle, and long-term health. If you're not using objective measures, I want to encourage you to find 1 or 2 that suit your practice style. You don't need to have all the bells and the whistles, but you do need to have something that validates your care beyond just how somebody feels. Because the reality is, symptoms come and go. What matters is whether we're making deep, sustainable changes, and this requires us to measure more than just pain. All right, let's quickly recap the 5 retention mistakes that we've covered today. The first was small symptom-only recommendations in the report of findings. When we play it safe, we limit the impact of care and we set the wrong expectations. Number 2 was not educating. Patients don't know what we know, and without consistent, layered education, they default to symptom-based model that they've grown up with and are supported by this modern world of ours. Number 3 was no future pacing. If we don't help patients imagine themselves in care months down the track, they won't either. Number 4 was no progress exams. Without regular check-ins, patients forget how far they've come and they disconnect from the journey. And number 5 was no objective measures beyond just symptoms. If we don't have tools to show progress beneath the surface, patients will rely on how they feel and not get the full story. So here's your action step for the week ahead. Pick one of those 5 areas, just one, that you know could use some attention in your practice. Maybe it's reintroducing progress exams or tightening up your education system or simply adjusting the language that you use to start to future pace. Make one small improvement this week. Test it, reflect on it. You don't need to fix everything overnight. It'll be momentum that you want to start moving forwards. And next week in part 2, we'll continue the conversation and we'll explore the remaining 5 mistakes, including some of the deeper mindsets and communication challenges that can quietly erode trust and cause patients to drift away. Well, that's it for today, folks. I'll see you back here next week. And as always, thanks for all that you do. Keep saving lives. Bye. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out my Community Influencer program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work with you to help you apply it, implement it, and systemize it. The Community Influencer Group Coaching Program is designed to help you increase your practice income, impact, and enjoyment. Join me over at anguspyke.com/join. That's anguspyke.com/join. I'd love to see you there.